All right, so this is probably going to be one of the more disturbing stories that I have talked about on this channel in recent time because in Haiti, they have been suffering from a lot of turmoil recently. They had a massive earthquake, not the one from 2010, which they were still trying to recover from, but a more recent earthquake that caused widespread devastation to a country that was already facing turmoil in the wake of the assassination of their president, Jovenel Moise. And in addition to that, obviously, they are a country that suffers from a great amount of poverty and gang violence, specifically related to the history of U.S. imperialism and the continued war on drugs that the United States has been maintaining in the United States and across Central and South America and in the Caribbean. And so this is a situation that we have right now. Joe Biden, in the wake of all of this turmoil, is deciding to forcefully deport and expel Haitian asylum seekers and immigrants as they are trying desperately to come to the United States in search of some sort of help from the conditions that they're facing back home. So I want to read you some of the details, and then we're going to get into some of the more disturbing shit that has been happening down on the border with Customs and Border Protection, who have been committing widespread human rights abuses and literally whipping people at the border. So it's just really disturbing, but I want to give you some of the background here. So Haiti official demands humanitarian moratorium as U.S. ramps up deportations. The administration's rapid removal of refugees and migrants was denounced as reprehensible and cruel. So, with Haiti still reeling from the effects of last month's earthquake and the assassination of President Jovenel Moise earlier this year, officials in the Caribbean nation on Monday demanded that the Biden administration halt the ramped-up expulsions of Haitian nationals seeking refuge in the United States, an estimated 14,000 of whom are expected to be deported from Texas in the coming weeks. Quote, "I'm asking for a humanitarian moratorium," said Jean, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Jean Delva, the head of Haiti's National Migration Office, told the New York Times after hundreds were deported to Haiti over the weekend, and quote, "The situation is very difficult, and as Common Dreams reported last week, human rights advocates and democratic lawmakers have also decried the expulsions of Haitian people who are currently staying in a makeshift encampment in Del Rio, Texas, many after having made the arduous journey from South America." And the Biden administration launched the deportations of the migrants under Title 42, a section of the Public Health Safety Act, which former President Donald Trump invoked during the pandemic to quickly expel asylum seekers from the country. And President Joe Biden has drawn international condemnation for doing exactly this. And one more thing, according to the New York Times, several migrants told Haitian migration officials upon arriving in Haiti that they had been handcuffed on flights and that U.S. authorities had lied to them about their destination, claiming that they were being sent to Florida. So just an added bit of cruelty on top of what is already a massive amount of cruelty coming from the Biden administration, again, continuing this process under Title 42, where basically they're saying, well, there's a pandemic, therefore we don't have to abide by international law and accept asylum seekers. That's essentially what the Biden administration is arguing with this enforcement that he is deploying, which is exactly the same type of enforcement mechanism that Donald Trump was using, okay? So remember back under the Donald Trump days when the media would be up in arms and Democrats would be up in arms and saying the kids are being put in cages and our asylum seekers and our immigrants are being treated unfairly by this fascist right-wing Trump administration, and then they take power. They have control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and what do you know? It's the exact same goddamn shit. It's almost like this type of stuff transcends party lines, and that both of them are horrifically terrible in their handling of immigration and of asylum seekers. And so now we get to the real meat of the disturbing nature of what is happening right now. So U.S., here from AFP news agency, U.S. Border Patrol agents try to stop Haitian migrants entering an encampment on the banks of the Rio Grande in Del Rio, Texas, that one that they were just talking about. And the U.S. says it will ramp up deportation flights for migrants flooding into Del Rio as authorities scramble to alleviate a burgeoning crisis. Here are just some of the pictures from what we have seen on the ground in the last couple of days. You see Border Patrol. This is Customs and Border Patrol, an agency which was founded under the Bush administration, as well as ICE, and an agency which I believe 100% should be abolished in its entirety. And you see here they are on the backs of horses trying to deal with some of these migrants who are desperately fleeing in literal flip-flops and having, literally nothing but the clothes on their backs, trying to come and search for a better life. And you have these motherfuckers, these white supremacists on the backs of horses carrying around whips and literally whipping these migrants. And as you see, there are many, many people who are here, but nonetheless, the solution is not to go after these people with violence. The solution is to create an immigration system that is actually humane and can process these asylum seekers in a fair and a just way. Of course, that's not what Biden actually wants to do. It's not what any president has wanted to do in recent history. And here, we're going to get a picture of what they were saying to these people on the ground, which won't surprise you, is pretty racist and pretty disgusting shit coming from this Customs and Border Patrol agent right here. So let's go ahead and watch this.
En México. This is how one US Border Patrol officer received Haitian migrants crossing the Rio Grande, coming back with food to a camp they've set up in Texas.
Hey, you use your women? This is why your country because you use your women for this. You go, that way. Hey, no, listen, no. No.
We've got our families in.
All right, so you see exactly what he was doing there. If you didn't catch it, basically what he was saying is exactly what's in this quote here. This is why your country's shit, because you use your women for this. Mounted Border Patrol officer to Haitian migrant he was writing down as he sheltered with his family. And, I don't even know what the fuck this is supposed to mean. Using your women for what? To try to seek refuge, to flee a desperate situation in your own home country, to try to look for a better life for you and your family. I don't even know what the fuck that guy's point was. He obviously doesn't have a legitimate one, and he's just using some of the same racist rhetoric that we see from conservatives all the time. And then you proceeded to see basically him running down these families, including children, running them down with his horses, trying to hit them with the horse, and then winding up his whip to try to actually whip people at the border. Absolutely horrific and disgusting shit. And as accurately pointed out here by Rob Rousseau, friend of the show, the U.S. does not have an off-the-hands approach to Haiti throughout our history, okay? We have been involved in multiple coup attempts. We have been involved in economically meddling in the country, militarily meddling in the country, and deploying death squads and doing the same shit that we have been doing throughout Central and South America and the Caribbean for basically the entire imperialist history of the United States. But just to point out a couple examples of our complicity in the situation, WikiLeaks, Haiti, country's elite used police as private army. A secret U.S. embassy cable describes how Haiti's business elite armed and deployed police units in pro-Aristide strongholds like Bel Air and I don't know how to pronounce that name, but after the 2004 coup that was supported by the United States and helped to be enforced by the United States. Another one, cable depicts fraudulent Haiti election, which was one that the U.S. Actually supported and endorsed the election of, which was completely fraudulent, again, to install somebody who would be more subservient to U.S. capitalist interests, and again, let them live on $3 a day. The U.S. embassies aided Levi's, Hanes contractors in their fights against an increase in Haiti's minimum wage, again, deploying the U.S. institutions of imperialism to fight against actual liberation and actual worker rights in countries all around the Caribbean, as you can see in Haiti with the companies of Levi and Hanes, as we are basically employing sweatshops to give Americans cheap commodities from these productions. So again, as you see, economically, militarily, politically, the United States is massively responsible for the turmoil that Haiti is facing right now. So you would think, at the very bare minimum, we would owe them, the least that we could owe them would be allowing them safe refuge in our country from the crises that we helped create in the first place. But of course, that's not what we're doing. Here from the Biden administration, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki on Haitian asylum seekers in Texas, quote, "Our message continues to be, now is not the time to come." This is fucking disgusting, okay? This is no different than what Donald Trump would say. Maybe he would add a little bit of racist rhetoric on top of this just to spice it up. But this policy is absolutely no different than what Trump was doing. Now is not the time to come. When the fuck is the time to come? I mean, the United States, as just pointed out by Rob there, is responsible for a lot of the turmoil that Haiti is facing right now. And you're telling them now is not the time to come. What the fuck do you expect them to do? Just sit back and accept a foreign, gigantic imperialist superpower meddling in their country, destroying their political institutions, undermining their democratic processes whenever there is any semblance of building up of democracy or socialism in Haiti? Then the U.S. empire decides to step in and crush it at the expense of the Haitian people. What exactly do you expect these people to do? Just sit back in their countries as gang violence largely multiplied by the U.S.-led war on drugs? What do you expect them to do? Just sit by and let their families suffer under these conditions that we are largely responsible for? No. Of course they are going to seek asylum, and of course they have a right, not just in my opinion or morally speaking, but they have a right under international law to be able to seek asylum in the ways that they are doing right now. There is no rule that says that they are not allowed to show up on the border seeking asylum like this, okay? This is just what the United States empire is choosing to do to repel these people. And so, as pointed out by Ilhan Omar here, these are human rights abuses, plain and simple, cruel, inhumane, and a violation of domestic and international law. This needs a course correction and an issuance of a clear directive on how to humanely process asylum seekers at our border. And of course, you see again the Border Patrol agents here literally whipping migrants at the border. So as you can see from those clips and from the ones before, they are running down people with their horses and whipping them from the backs of those horses. So listen, Ilhan Omar was 100% correct on that take. These are international and domestic human rights abuses. It should be very evident from what we're literally seeing on the screens in front of us. It's not a difficult situation to understand. This is the immorality. This is the disgusting nature of what it looks like to enforce the borders in these ways. And listen, if you don't want, even if you are a conservative and you believe in, protecting our borders, which I'm not even somebody who necessarily ever advocates for open borders or for abolishing borders altogether, although I do think that there are good conversations to have around that discussion. But if you wanted to enforce border security, then the best way to do that would be providing a safe and effective and legal avenue for these people to enter the country via asylum seeking processes, right? The solution is never, under any circumstances, even if you are a conservative and you want to fix the problem of people showing up on the border, the solution is not to send out a bunch of armed white men on the backs of horses to go and whip these people, okay? That's not effective. It's not safe, and it's not doing anything to help anybody in this entire situation. So the solutions that are actually on the board for what can be done is we need to welcome these people into our country with open arms, because again, we are largely responsible for the crises that their country is facing. So that's the first thing. And in addition to that, we need to abolish Customs and Border Protection, and we need to abolish ICE. These are institutions that don't serve anything other than white supremacy, and you can see that here. They are not protecting and serving anything, certainly not the American people. These Border Patrol agents, police, and the similar institutions around the United States are much more of a threat to you and your family than these Haitian immigrants ever could be in a million years. So we need to be welcoming these people in with open arms and call out human rights abuses and crimes when we see them.